Hey, Willie. Welcome to this deep dive on something I know you've got plenty of experience with, especially between your garden in Florida and that recent trip to the Philippines you took. Mosquitoes.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a pretty unique perspective on these little guys, Willie. The Florida gardener's view, and having spent time in the Philippines where dengue fever is a real problem, plus with your military background, you've probably got a leg up on the vaccination front too, right?
It's like a mosquito masterclass. So today we're diving into everything from DIY mosquito traps to some larger scale strategies for keeping them at bay, all inspired by your experiences, Willie. We've even got some intel on how Disney World keeps the mosquito population under control.
Definitely. Let's kick things off with something you've probably seen all over, Willie, especially online. That 2-liter bottle trap.
Oh yeah, that one went viral a while back, didn't it? Cut the
Yeah.
bottle, flip the top, add some sugary water. Instant mosquito magnet, or so they said.
Right. Seems like it should work, but the truth is, mosquitoes aren't really that into the sugary stuff. They're looking for something else.
Okay, so spill the beans. What actually does work when it comes to mosquito traps?
Well, it's less about luring them in and more about taking advantage of their, shall we say, weaknesses. One surprisingly effective trap uses something I bet you've got in your kitchen right now: detergent.
Detergent. For mosquitoes, I'm intrigued.
It's all about surface tension. See, mosquitoes need water to lay their eggs, but adding detergent to, say, a bucket of water breaks that surface tension. So when they land to lay those eggs, whips, down they go.
So they basically drown.
Exactly. I've seen some videos of those detergent traps in action, and they really do collect a lot of mosquitoes.
Yeah, those videos are pretty wild. Now, on a slightly more high-tech note, I've also seen these fan traps that people are building. Pretty intense stuff.
Oh, yeah, the high-velocity fan trap. Think of it like a super-powered spider web, but instead of sticky silk, it's a fine mesh. Add in a powerful fan to suck the mosquitoes in, and you've got yourself a mosquito-catching machine.
I've seen folks catching thousands of mosquitoes overnight with those things.
It's pretty impressive. And the good news is you don't necessarily have to go full DIY. There are commercial options out there, like the Dynatrap, that use the same basic concept: fan, mesh net, even a backlight to attract those nighttime biters.
So, Willie, we've got the simple detergent trap and the more advanced fan trap. Have you experimented with either of those in your Florida garden? So those DIY traps are pretty neat. But let's
Yeah.
shift gears a bit here, Willie, and talk about something a little more serious. You mentioned your trip to the Philippines and how dengue fever was a concern there, even in the province where you're staying.
Yeah, dengue's a real threat over there, and it's actually spreading globally.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a virus
Yeah.
transmitted through the bite of those infected Aedes mosquitoes.
Oh, right.
And symptoms, they can range from, mild fever and aches to some pretty severe complications, like hemorrhagic fever.
That sounds scary. And it's not just a traveler's problem either, right?
Yeah.
Millions of people around the world get infected each year. But, Willie, you had some protection during your trip, right? I mean, you were vaccinated for dengue back when you were in the military.
That's right. Willie got the dengue vaccine, which is definitely a good move, but there's a little bit of a catch. There are actually 4 different dengue strains.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and while the vaccine offers some protection, it's not foolproof. It can vary in how effective it is depending on which strain you encounter.
So even with the vaccine, it's still super important to take precautions, especially in those areas where dengue common.
Absolutely. And Willie, it sounds like you were pretty careful during your trip to the Philippines. You mentioned using oil-based sprays and making sure your sleeping area was airtight,
Yeah.
screening windows and stuff, right?
That's smart. What other steps did you take to, try to minimize your risk?
Well, one of the biggest things is just avoiding those mosquito bites in the first place, right? And the Aedes mosquito, that's the main culprit behind dengue. Well, it's a daytime biter,
Oh.
which can make it a bit trickier to avoid.
So it's not just about covering up at, like, dawn and dusk.
Right, you got to be on guard throughout the whole day. So long sleeves, light colors, a good DP-based repellent, those are your best bets.
For anyone who might not know, DT, that's the active ingredient in a lot of insect repellents. And it's really effective at keeping mosquitoes away.
Definitely. And don't forget about those breeding grounds. Even the smallest amount of standing water can be a mosquito nursery, basically.
So even like a tiny little puddle can make a difference.
Absolutely. It all adds up.
Wow.
Now let's talk about your experience with that dengue fever information, Willie. You were using ChatGPT to kind of brush up on your knowledge, right?
Yeah, I was actually pretty curious to see how an AI chatbot would handle a topic like dengue. And honestly, it did a pretty decent job, broke down those 4 different strains and highlighted how dangerous subsequent infections can be.
Yeah, that's that antibody-dependent enhancement thing. Basically, if you get infected with one dengue strain and then later on a different one, your immune system can kind of overreact,
Oh.
leading to a much more severe case.
So it's like the opposite of chickenpox, where once you have it, you're good.
Right.
With dengue, later infections could be even worse.
Exactly. That's one of the things that makes dengue so tricky to deal with. And ChatGPT also really emphasized just how widespread this disease is.
Yeah, hundreds of millions of infections every year, with thousands of deaths. And a lot of those are children. It's a pretty stark reminder that dengue is a serious global health problem.
It really is. And it shows that we need a multi-pronged approach to fighting it. Personal protection's key, but community-level efforts are just as important.
So things like public health campaigns and, organized efforts to get rid of those breeding grounds, strategic insecticide spraying.
Exactly. It takes a combination of those things, individual actions and community initiatives, to really make a difference in that mosquito population and reduce the spread of dengue.
Okay, so let's lighten things up a little bit now. Besides the serious stuff, we also came across some articles about all those, crazy DIY mosquito traps and gadgets people come up with. I'm curious, Willie, have you seen any of those?
Oh, yeah. There are some pretty interesting ones out there for sure. Some are more effective than others.
Like, what about that laser-powered mosquito zapper we saw online?
Now, that one was pretty creative. Maybe not the most practical, though.
It looked fun to build, though.
Yeah, it did.
And then there was that thing about using coffee grounds to repel mosquitoes. Apparently the smell is supposed to throw them off.
Right, some people sprinkle coffee grounds around their patio or burn them like incense. It's a natural approach, but I'm not really sure how well it works, to be honest.
Well, I'm all for natural solutions. But I don't know if I want my backyard smelling like a Starbucks.
I hear ya.
But hey, if it works, right. It just goes to show you that people are always looking for new ways to win that war against mosquitoes.
That's true. And hopefully all that ingenuity, combined with research and, community efforts, will lead to some even better, more sustainable mosquito control solutions in the future.
All right, Willie, welcome back for the final part of our mosquito deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground so far, from those DIY traps and the dengue fever threat to those sentinel chickens and even those coffee ground repellents.
Yeah. But there's one question we haven't really tackled yet. Is it actually possible to get rid of all the mosquitoes in your yard? Like completely wipe them out?
That's the dream, right? A totally mosquito-free oasis where you can actually enjoy your garden.
Especially in a place like Florida where they're around pretty much all year long.
Right. Well, the truth is, complete eradication. That's a tough one, especially in places that are prone to mosquitoes. They're just so adaptable. They breed in tiny little puddles, lay tons of eggs, and their numbers rebound so quickly.
So what's a gardener like you to do, Willie? Just give in and let the mosquitoes take over?
Not at all. While you might not be able to get rid of every single mosquito, you can definitely cut down their numbers significantly and make your yard a lot less attractive to them.
Okay, so let's talk strategy. What are some practical tips that folks can use to make their gardens more mosquito resistant?
Well, first things first, you got to eliminate those breeding grounds. We've touched on this before, but it's super important. Walk around your yard, look for any standing water, dump it out. Clear out your gutters. Don't forget about those little saucers under your potted plants.
I've heard that even something as small as a bottle cap filled with water can be a breeding ground.
You got it. And if you've got a pond or any water features, you might want to think about adding some mosquito-eating fish, like gambusia.
Oh, right, yeah.
Or you can use those mosquito dunks. They release a bacteria that specifically targets mosquito larvae.
So those are good natural solutions. What about plants? Are there any that can help repel mosquitoes from your garden?
There are a few. Citronella, lemongrass, lavender, and marigolds are all known to have scents that mosquitoes don't like. Planting those strategically around your garden or patio can create a kind of natural barrier.
Like a fragrant defense line.
Exactly. And those fans we were talking about earlier?
Yeah?
Well, regular fans can actually help out in your garden too. Mosquitoes aren't strong flyers, so having a fan or two strategically placed can disrupt their flight and make it harder for them to land on you.
It's like creating a windshield to keep them at bay.
Exactly. And you can boost that protection even more by combining fans with some mosquito netting or screens. Around your patio or seating area, the more barriers you have, the less likely those mosquitoes are to get to you.
Now, what about all those commercial mosquito repellent products out there? The citronella candles and coils and ultrasonic devices. Do any of those actually work well outdoors?
Citronella candles and coils, they can provide some localized repellency, but the effects are pretty limited, and those ultrasonic devices that claim to repel mosquitoes with sound waves,
Yeah.
jury's still out on those. Some people swear by them, but the research is pretty mixed.
So it sounds like sticking to the proven methods, like those repellents and netting and eliminating breeding grounds, that's really the best way to go.
I think so. And remember, consistency is key. Controlling mosquitoes, it's an ongoing thing. Requires a little vigilance and regular maintenance.
So, Willie, as a seasoned gardener in Florida where mosquitoes are a fact of life, what's your big takeaway from all this? What advice would you give to other gardeners out there who are battling the same mosquito problems?
I'm curious to hear what Willie has to say. He's the one out there on the front lines of the mosquito war.
You know, Willie, thinking about your military background and your time in the Philippines, it occurs to me that you're in a really good position to teach other people about mosquito control and disease prevention.
You're right. He's got all that hands-on experience, both with the annoyance of mosquitoes and the health risks they pose.
I bet you could even start a mosquito fighting club for gardeners.
That's a great idea. Sharing tips and tricks with each other, that could make a big difference.
Willie, you could be the general in the war against mosquitoes.
Leading the charge with knowledge and strategy, maybe a little humor thrown in there too.
As we wrap up this deep dive on mosquito mayhem, Willie, what's one final thought you'd like to leave everyone with? Something for them to think about as they tackle their own mosquito battles.
We've explored so much, from how mosquitoes behave to the latest in dengue prevention. We even talked about some pretty unusual approaches.
It's been a really interesting mix of science and personal experience, and a bit of ingenuity, too.
Right. But at the end of the day, the message is clear. Mosquitoes can be a pain, but we're not helpless against them.
By understanding their habits, taking steps to prevent bites, and staying informed, we can all enjoy our outdoor spaces more.
So remember, Willie, and everyone listening, knowledge is power when it comes to fighting mosquitoes. And with that power, we can all create healthier and more enjoyable experiences for ourselves and our communities.
So go forth, armed with all your new mosquito wisdom, and win those backyard battles.
And until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay bite-free.